All Things Conceivable, a surrogacy podcast with Nazca Fontes.
Welcome, listeners, and thank you for joining me. Today I have two words for you. Get ready. We have a spectacular podcast, and just wait till you hear all about my next guest. I feel overwhelmingly thankful that my professional calling has been to help hopeful women pursue their path to motherhood through the unique journey of surrogacy. And in honor of Mother's Day, today's guest is Jacqueline Baird, who is just so incredible. Jacqueline's path to parenthood inspired her to create a community for women to connect, and is currently on her third season of her very own podcast, Motherhood Intended, where she talks about her infertility journey, her loss, her surrogacy journey, and so much more. She and her husband, Josh, have 6 babies, 2 sons, Hunter and Noah, her 3 angels in heaven, and her brand new baby, her daughter, Lorelei Rose, who is as cute as a button and has just made her entrance into the world through surrogacy, making this Mother's Day extra special. So first of all, Jacqueline, congratulations. And I believe Lorelei is about 2 weeks old. I mean, how are you adjusting and how are you here today?
Yes, I thank you so much. Well, this opportunity I just couldn't let pass because I'm just filled with so much gratitude and joy in this moment with bringing Lorelei into the world, and we're doing good over here. I mean, she truly has been the missing piece to our family, and we're still just like in awe that this is even real and she's here safely, and just so very grateful for our surrogate and the whole process. It's been quite a journey, and we're just in like this blissful moment currently and just taking it all in.
I love it. Well, I know time is precious with a newborn at home, and the fact that you're here celebrating with me today is just incredible. So we have so much to cover. I wish we could cover everything, but in the interest of time, let's just jump into it. So how about we start by having you share with our listeners, a little bit about you and your family?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my husband and I have been married we got married in 2013, so it'll go on 11 years this year. And we knew right away that we wanted to start a family. We waited a year to just, enjoy marriage. And then we were like, okay, let's do this. We always dreamt of a big family. I'm one of 4 siblings. He's one of 3. And it's part of what brought us together. And in our initial days of dating, we just had this mutual goal of just family. Family is important to us. And so, once we started trying, we had some difficulties, and, nothing was happening for 6 months, a year, went through the whole, the whole journey of testing and getting with a fertility clinic. And, I found out I had a blocked fallopian tube and my thyroid levels were off. And so that kind of started us diving in deeper as to like what is preventing us from getting pregnant and starting our family. We fixed those 2 issues. I went on medication, had a procedure to unblock my tube, and then we started right away with medications and IUIs. And after we were told it would take, within 3 to 4 tries, it should work this way. Otherwise, further intervention might be needed. And it was on the 4th try that we got pregnant with twins. And like I said, my story is very in depth, but for the sake of time, basically, I, had a fine pregnancy all the way up until the beginning of my 2nd trimester. And unfortunately, lost one of the twins at 14 weeks. And then our other twin at 16 weeks, both delivered premature. And so it was at that point we talked with MFM, and no one really had answers for us, given that it was like my first pregnancy. There weren't any signs leading up to the pregnancy, leading up to the loss that would indicate, what happened. It was kind of just chalked up at that point to be, it was a high risk pregnancy, and it was just one of those things. So, we took some time to grieve after that. And 6 months later, we decided to jump back into it and try again. And we went with, more medications and IUI just to, it worked for us. So we're like, well, let's just try it again. And after 3 more failed attempts, I mean, not only mentally and were we drained, but physically, with all the meds and everything, I was just ready to move on. So we switched fertility clinics and got a second opinion and decided it was time for us to do IVF. And it was with IVF that we got pregnant. We had a successful retrieval and got 8 embryos. We did not genetically test them at that time. So, given that we were just younger and didn't have any health history that, raised any flags, we just, we transferred a fresh embryo and got pregnant with our oldest son, Hunter, who is now 6. And I wish I could say that pregnancy was smooth sailing and we figured it all out and everything was good from there. But at 17 weeks, my cervix started opening, which of course should not be happening that early. I had a rescue cerclage placed to keep it closed. I was told that, they at the time my doctors felt very confident that would help. It should work. Everything should stay closed. You should go on to have, an uneventful pregnancy. Well, at a routine appointment at 23 weeks, my amazing OB who trusted her gut and decided to do a cervical check on me just to make sure the cerclage was doing its job. Without any warning signs, she checked and I was 2 centimeters dilated at 23 weeks. So very abruptly was sent to the hospital and essentially put on bed rest, the kind of bed rest where I was just laying flat, couldn't move, couldn't get out of bed. And they were giving me steroids and medications to help develop baby's lungs, just in the event of this premature delivery. And after 8 days on bed rest, my son, Hunter, was born at 24 weeks and 5 days. That was a very scary time. He was, of course, whisked away to the NICU and spent 120 days there. The first couple months were very touch and go. There was a lot going on. He had to overcome a grade 3 brain bleed. He had to have a procedure on his heart. And then the biggest thing, just at 24 weeks, baby's not ready. So learning how to suck, swallow, and breathe. And it was a really hard journey. That is feels like a whole decade in 4 months because it was just forever and long and just so much going on in those 4 months. But I don't know how he came out of it. He's our miracle for sure, because he came home from the NICU not needing any assistance to breathe or to eat. And he is perfectly healthy and has been. He has asthma and he wears glasses. But he is just smart and funny and healthy. And we're just so shocked that he was here. And so it was after his birth, we knew we had all these embryos. And, it was at that point that my doctors and MFM were like, okay, it's your cervix. It would explain why you could not, you delivered, your first pregnancy and why it couldn't hold a second pregnancy. And so in order to carry a pregnancy to term, they suggested that I have a surgery to place an abdominal cerclage, which is just a more effective way of keeping the cervix closed. So when Hunter was about, I think he was like 9 months old, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do this now. Looking back, I did way too many things in 1 year and should have processed and grieved the experience and just let my body and mind heal. But I had that placed. And then when Hunter was 1 year old, we decided to do another embryo transfer for my son, Noah, who is now about 4.5. And that was successful on the first try. And my pregnancy was perfectly fine. I always have everything was fine until date. And it was at about 23 weeks that I started having some preterm labor. And now that I had the abdominal cerclage in, the only stipulation is that you have to have a C-section delivery. They don't want you contracting. They don't want you going into labor. So it was scheduled for 38 weeks because they don't want uterine rupture. So when I came to the hospital with preterm labor at 23 weeks, it was very concerning because, of course, with this cerclage in, it's just, it's very dangerous for my health and for the baby and delivering premature. So luckily I was given medications and again, steroids in the event of delivery. And they determined that my preterm labor was because of polyhydramnios, which is excessive fluid. They couldn't find a reason why. Everything genetically had looked perfect. The baby looked perfect on the ultrasound. Sometimes they just don't know why for the excessive fluid. So I spent about a month in the hospital. The first week and a half, 2 weeks were all about trying to stop labor. And then I think just as a precaution, they kept me 2 more weeks to get me into my third trimester because, which was fine with me at the time because I was just terrified and, had a lot of PTSD from delivering Hunter early. And I knew at least if I'm in the hospital, I'm in the right place. But it was really hard on my husband at that point because we had a almost 1.5-year-old at home. He's trying to work and essentially be a single dad and then come up to the hospital for me. And it put a lot of stress on us. Individually, as a couple, it was a lot. So at 28 weeks, I was sent home to finish my pregnancy at home, and I was on bed rest. And then they did move up my C-section day, but my son Noah was born at 37 weeks via C-section, perfectly healthy. And then we found ourselves with 2 under 2, and the pandemic hit. And I know this isn't the popular opinion, but for us, the pandemic actually was really calming for our family. We of course didn't have any ties to. We all stayed healthy throughout it, but for us, it was the first time in a long time where we all got to just stay home, be calm, enjoy each other, not think about fertility treatments. It was one of the first times I think we finally started to grieve the loss of our twins because we weren't just like go, go, go. We were looking at our 2 beautiful sons that we had with us. And for me, it was just a time of reflection and grief and taking it all in. And so having the 2 at home, we were very busy and very blessed. We, of course, still had 6 embryos and knew we wanted a large family. And so even though there was the hiccup with my pregnancy with Noah, he was our full-term baby. He came healthy and everyone was doing well. So we thought with my surgery with the cerclage, we thought we had figured it out. And we knew we wanted to wait longer because, 2 under 2 was a lot. We wanted to take some time before doing another transfer. So it was in 2021, we're like, maybe towards the end of the year, we will think about doing another embryo transfer when the boys are a little bit older. Well, after about 8 years of trying to get pregnant on my own, not being on birth control, unsuccessful, in the spring, in May, I think it was in April, I got pregnant on my own. I was very surprised. We did not think it was possible. I was confident because my cerclage is in place, that stays in place. So I wasn't worried about any kind of preterm delivery. And again, like all my pregnancies, it was fine until it wasn't. And this time I didn't have any issues at all. I actually had a very great pregnancy up until about 20 weeks. I felt the best I've ever felt because I wasn't on all of the fertility medications, and I just felt really good. And then out of nowhere, one weekend, I started having lower back pain, and within 24 hours, I was in the ER, and it was placental abruption, and we unfortunately lost our daughter, Marin, at 20 weeks. And I had to go in pretty quickly for a C-section. I was losing a lot of blood, and it was very dangerous for me and my uterus and my health. And unfortunately, she had passed before we, even had to go back there. So that really rocked our world. And to just in the sake of time, we had a lot of soul searching to do after that, and a lot of conversations, my husband and I, with each other and with our doctors who have been with us, the whole way. And it was at that point that, our MFM doctor had said, I don't know what we would do differently if you were to get pregnant again. I'm not telling you that you can't, but I know that you have children at home, a beautiful family, and you are at high risk for so many things that we just quite can't figure out. And it's, it's been one thing or another with every pregnancy. And so at that point, he really didn't have to convince me. It was really scary with the placental abruption with my daughter Marin, because all I can think about were my boys at home and my health and and being there from them. And everything, infertility looks a little different when you've got children at home. Prior to having my sons, I probably would have stopped at nothing to get pregnant and to have a family. But now I have a family, and, I had to think of them and my health and my husband. So, it was brought up about surrogacy, having a surrogate carry one of our embryos. And
before we get into that, Jacqueline,
yeah,
this story, I've been riveted, right? I've been on the edge of my seat listening. There's so much.
Yes.
I do want to remind our listeners, like your podcast, Motherhood Intended, you really take a deep dive into all of this. And
yeah,
what a story, what a journey. From triumph to heartbreak and loss and emotions. And so really, listeners, please go have a listen. You can find and hear a lot more about Jacqueline's story there. But the surrogacy component, right?
Yes.
This is where things take a different turn for you. But before that, can you just briefly touch upon, how much infertility and loss can take a toll, both physically and emotionally, on a partnership and a marriage? And how have you and Josh been able to heal and remain strong so that you were both ready for surrogacy?
Yeah, absolutely. You hit it on the head. It takes a toll in more ways than one. It's put a lot of stress on our marriage. Everything from having to support my husband, supporting me through the actual fertility treatments, us supporting each other through the loss, learning as a couple that we both grieve differently. And not just grieving the loss of a pregnancy or a baby, but also just grieving, the process that having a family isn't going to look the way that we thought it would, that it's going to take extra steps. So I wasn't really prepared for that, but we both felt so many different things and at different times. So for us, we really needed to set aside time. After we lost the twins, we did seek therapy. We had to make it a point. It was easier before we had children because we got very distracted with Hunter and Noah, of course, which is why, like I said, during the pandemic, when we kind of slowed down, we really had to have a lot of conversations and prioritize our marriage again. Because when you're going through infertility, you can really just get on this roller coaster, and you get on and you just keep going. And
yeah, it's just a treadmill.
It is. And I think it's so important for anyone listening who is going through this to just, I love, someone told me this phrase once and I really love it. It's that there's power in the pause, and it applies to so many things. But I think especially when you're navigating infertility, sometimes you just need to scratch the original plan, take a beat, regroup, focus on something else. That's been really helpful for my husband and I throughout our journey as well. He's really into golf, so he'll go golf. The podcast has been healing for me. Spending time with friends, doing something outside of trying to conceive and have a family really allows you the space in your brain to see it big picture and kind of reflect on everything. And that's really what helped us kind of get to the point of deciding to do surrogacy, because that was never on our radar. That was never in our plans. But when we were able to take a step back and really look inward and see okay, well, what do we want? What is the safest way? And what could that look like? It became really clear to us. But unless you stop and just stop what you're doing and kind of reevaluate everything, it's hard to get there sometimes because it wasn't your original dream.
It is. That's right. And I love that phrase too. That's the first time I've heard that, power in the pause. But it's true, because when you've experienced profound grief and also profound joy, I think you need the space and time to realize that you can hold both in tandem. Right. And a lot of people don't realize that unless they stop and go through the process of experiencing the loss and the grief and the joy together. And it does take a while. And if you don't stop, inevitably there's going to be some emotional upheaval later on when it hits you, right? It's going to hit you sooner or later, it will. And so, you manage to have both of these together and hold them both as you move forward to build your family. Yeah. And, I would love to know a little bit more about when, because you mentioned surrogacy was never part of the plan.
Yeah.
So when your doctor finally recommended this to you, can you share how you felt hearing that for the first time?
Yeah. So, and as we're talking about this, I'm remembering now that it was actually the first time it came to my mind was when I was on bed rest for that month in the hospital by myself, pregnant with Noah. And of course, at that point, no one was telling me I couldn't carry a pregnancy. I think at that point, though, after all that time on bed rest, I was at a breaking point myself. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this again. Like mentally, even if someone told me physically, you can carry a pregnancy, I don't know emotionally and mentally if I could have. And that was the first time that little seed was in my head. And I truthfully only knew about surrogacy from, celebrities and it seemed like something unattainable for me and my family. So it was a thought, but it was kind of just like put on the back burner. So then when my doctor, brought it up, I felt two things at once. Like you said, joy and grief can coexist. And that's exactly what I felt in that moment. I felt relief. Like it felt like a weight off my shoulders, knowing that there is a way and there are people out there, there are women out there that can help us achieve our family's dreams. But then of course there's also that little piece that, I had to grieve. I felt, a little sad that this was that was the end of the journey for me. Mm-hmm. The hope and the relief definitely outweighed the grief, but it's definitely there. I think anyone in any part of their journey, whether you've never been pregnant before or you've, never had issues and you decided that your family is complete, I think whether you're ready or not, there's always that little piece of sadness when that chapter is closed. So I kind of felt it all.
It sounds like it. And most women do, having gone through that arc, right, of the loss, the joy, the decision-making. I always call it moving the emotional boundary marker, right? Moving it a little bit more, further and further until you're ready for it. And so when you finally decided to pursue surrogacy, you and Josh, tell me a little bit about how you ended up working with ConceiveAbilities. What was your decision-making process like? And ultimately, we're going to talk a little bit about Maranda, too.
Yeah. So, initially without knowing anything about it, we were like, okay, we can probably do this on our own, right? I work in community management and my husband's a people person. Like there's gotta be somebody we know that can help us. And very quickly after, doing some research into surrogacy and the whole process, we were like, okay, this is involved. There's a lot of steps. There's a lot of, the legal and the psych evals and finding that special right match. And so much more went into it than we even realized. So pretty quickly we knew that we wanted assistance in this process. And so, we interviewed with a few different agencies, and ConceiveAbilities, from the very first phone call, we just felt what we were looking for. We felt taken care of. We felt like immediately somebody was holding our hand and being like, we're going to figure this out and we're going to do it together and we're going to help you every step of the way. And that was just invaluable to us. It was in that moment that we were like, okay, we can do this. We can do this. Like they're going to help us figure out every little aspect of this journey. And we felt really confident in it. And to be honest, it wasn't until I did that initial Google search of what surrogacy looks like and how it works that I realized, and especially coming off of COVID, just how long the process could be. I know things are much different now, but a couple years ago, I was Google with a quick search. I was like, oh wow, it could be 2 years before we have a baby in our lives. And so we kind of took that leap of faith before we were fully ready, because we were still grieving the loss of Marin. But because, like you said, we already had experience navigating joy and grief together, we knew that pursuing this avenue and trying to grow our family and starting the process doesn't diminish the grief and all of the sadness we felt for losing our daughter, Marin. So because we had done the work prior to this, it really allowed us to move forward. And we were so happy to sign with the agency and just feel like this was a real dream within reach for us.
People are often really curious about the match. And so, we've now explored kind of how you got to the idea of surrogacy, how you and Josh took those leaps into the process. You contracted with the agency ConceiveAbilities. And now, right, the most important part of the puzzle in a surrogacy journey finding the right match, that partner for you. So why don't you share with us how important that match was for you and what some of the important factors that loomed large for you and Josh in the matching process?
Yeah, absolutely. We wanted to be matched with somebody who, and again, this was without, I know I've talked to so many surrogates at this point, and there are so many common characteristics between a lot of them and why behind surrogacy. So but I didn't know this going into it. So for us, it was really important to us that whoever was going to help us on this journey would truly understand how much this meant to us, and just really know our backstory and what we've been through. And just to have an idea, not that they would understand because they haven't been in our shoes in this specific way, but just to know that we're coming from a place of honestly like grief and trauma, but also like a grateful, and we're happy, and we do have children. It was important for us to know that, to be matched with somebody that was easygoing, because I have had so much anxiety throughout all of my pregnancies, and we just needed someone kind of to be the calm to our chaos, and the calm to our storm, because it's been a lot for us, and I wasn't sure what was going to be triggering for me throughout this process. I went into it feeling like, oh, this is going to be great, but I'm going to be totally okay with knowing that someone else is carrying our baby and everything along the way. But you don't know how you're going to feel until you're in it. And so someone who was just kind of, calm and understood where we were coming from was really important to us. And, we didn't specifically look for somebody who had been a surrogate before, but after being presented with someone who was an experienced surrogate, that even made us more confident, and just knowing that they can kind of hold our hand a little more throughout the process and know that they've been through this, they know what this journey looks like. And so we were really blessed to be matched with Maranda, because she just fit everything for us. It's been such an awesome friendship. And, from the second we talked, it's kind of one of those things where like, I don't even know if I knew all of the things I was looking for, but the second we talked to each other and started communicating, I was like we just knew, like, we're like, okay, this feels right. This feels easy, and this feels good. And it absolutely was. It was an amazing partnership.
Were there times where Maranda did act as kind of maybe a buffer to some of this anxiety? Was she able to communicate to you and Josh and say, hey, I know you're feeling anxious at this stage of the process, and here's how I'm going to manage it for you? And did she coach you at all like that?
Yes, we had a pretty open communication, and, I'm pretty open with my feelings, and I would just tell her when I'm like, hey, like, do you have a bump pic you can share with us? Or, anything that she could do to calm, she would send me, even if there was barely a bump. I'm like, it's okay if there's nothing there. I just need to see you to know that this is truly happening, because it's so hard to believe that it's going well and it's happening. So every step of the way, whether it was sending pictures or giving us updates, we were talking about it, the most anxiety was actually towards the very end, just because I could not believe we were so close to meeting our daughter and that everything had gone so well. And so she, was always saying like, I know you're probably anxious. I just want you to know I'm doing well. And, she was open about her anxieties too towards the end, which actually made me feel really, really good to know that it wasn't just me over here freaking out. She's human too, and she's about to give birth. So that just felt so normal to me to hear. So yeah, every step of the way, we were just reassured with one thing or another by her. It was so nice to have her support.
Well, to the comments you made previously about everything was going okay until it wasn't.
Right.
And I'm sure even with, a healthy surrogate with a history of delivering healthy, happy babies, mm-hmm. I'm sure you still were harboring some of that anxiety related to, when is the other shoe going to drop?
Yeah.
And so I'd love that, both of you worked in tandem to kind of get to a point where, you had a great, strong relationship and could communicate those mutual anxieties to get to the point of delivery. And, tell me about getting a birth plan together And then, of course, we all want to talk about the moment of delivery. So what was the birth plan like for the two of you, and how was it different, based on your own history of, bed rest and difficult pregnancies and preterm deliveries? Like, how did you navigate a birth plan with Maranda?
Yeah, it's really interesting because even the term birth plan was just never something that was part of my story. The biggest plan I guess I ever had was a scheduled C-section, but I didn't really have more plans than that other than to just get to that date and just hope that I get to that date. So having the birth plan discussion was really eye-opening. I mean, I learned a lot about pregnancy and delivery that I realized I never really knew, unfortunately. I've never been in labor like that full term. I didn't know the whole process of delivery and what that looks like afterwards. My experiences were just so different. So having the conversations, I was so grateful to have, ConceiveAbilities like leading the way in that discussion with my husband and I and Maranda, because I wouldn't even known what to ask, like, where do we stand? Who's going to cut the cord? Like, who's going to call who? Like all these things that just didn't cross my mind. Partially, I think because of my history, I just kind of blocked it out, thinking like, I just don't want to think about it because I just want to get there. So it was actually very therapeutic and very helpful to have this conversation. So, it was, I'm trying to think what the plan was. I will say everything went to plan. I was just throughout the whole process was just so amazed how everything was working out and how calm the whole experience was. Every time, in my opinion, that I, have given birth to a baby, it has been chaotic and, an emergency, and just even my full-term baby, it was just a lot, in the operating room and just hoping that he's healthy and all the things, and experiencing it with Maranda from the planning to the actual delivery was just so calm. It was like, I feel like we could have heard a pin drop, leading up to her delivery. It was just like the most peaceful experience to witness.
So I love that story of just developing this plan, having it all go as, everybody anticipates, the calmness before the storm of the delivery, right? But a good storm, a happy storm. So let's talk about that moment where, it's what everybody waits for and dreams about, the moment that surrogate delivers your baby. Can you share that story with us?
Yeah, so we're located in Chicago and Maranda is in Texas. And so with our boys at home, we had our parents watching them, and we decided to get down. We got down there 4 days prior to the induction date, which ended up being the due date. And so we got down there just in case, which was a very, anxious 4 days, but we stayed in contact with Maranda and we tried to keep busy. And sure enough, she made it to the due date, and we all checked in, 7:30 in the morning at the hospital, and we were prepared to kind of be there all day because in her previous 3 pregnancies, she has labored somewhere between 10 and 12 hours, even when she was induced the last time. So, but we were quite surprised because we were waiting around, we kind of popped in and out of her room so she could, get the epidural and do what she needed to do. We come back and hang out with her, and that was very short-lived because we were, I think, down the hall for like a half hour before the nurse was coming in and saying like, you know what, this has escalated quickly and baby's going to be here soon. And we just like were frozen because we were kind of caught by surprise, but we were so ready and nervous, of course, for everything, just the new experience and just being like so close to just seeing our daughter in this world, something we just never thought would happen. And so, we were in there with Maranda, her family was in there. And, the moment our daughter was born, it was just, I think my husband and I we just burst into tears. I mean, we were like shaking leading up to it, and we just couldn't even hold back. I mean, we were just crying, and seeing her just perfect and healthy was just surreal. And we're so grateful that Miranda's husband had taken videos for us. So the first time of us, holding her and seeing her, and we have that memory to keep forever and to show her one day, because it's really important for us that our daughter, knows how she came into this world, because it's important to us. So I mean, that moment was just everything I imagined and more. And our hearts are just bursting at the seams of like gratitude for Maranda.
I love this. Oh, we're always trying constantly to myth bust, when it comes to surrogacy, because there's so many myths that swirl around the idea of surrogacy and what the women are like and what the intended parents are like. And, there's this fallacy that parents don't have a bond with their baby born through surrogacy. Tell us about the connection you feel to Lorelei, not only, of course, now, but even when Maranda was pregnant with her. Like, what is that connection that you feel towards her? Is it just like your other children?
Yeah, I absolutely feel just as connected to her as I did with my other kids. I mean, I definitely think that I was a little concerned at first of that aspect and not feeling like I would be as connected or that it would be different, especially given that I have, children here that I birthed. But honestly, the first lesson in that was when my son Hunter was born, and he spent 4 months in the NICU. He was not in my care, and I didn't hold him for 9 days. Even when I was able to hold him, it was minimal, and it was so different. He spent, half the pregnancy outside of me. So, and I don't feel any differently towards him and my other son. So that was always in the back of my mind that, that's not what is going to make me feel bonded to my baby, because the second Lorelei was born, I mean, we did skin to skin, and it's like, again, it's been 2 weeks and I can't imagine her not being here and in our arms. Like, it's just so natural, and it's hard to explain actually, because it kind of took me by surprise, not being, the one to carry her and feel those kicks. None of that has mattered, and it just all is washed away when my baby is in my arms. And, we were fortunate enough throughout the pregnancy to go down to Texas any chance we could. We were there for the 8-week ultrasound and the 20-week. And then we actually brought our sons with us to Texas to meet Maranda and her family when she was about 33 weeks along. And we took them and we did a 3D ultrasound. And it was important to us and to make those memories, honestly, for Lorelei to look back on that, her whole family was there with this other family. And it really did take a village to bring her to us. And so that helped us feel connected as well, just staying super involved throughout it all. And it's been amazing. I don't notice a difference at all with
That's great.
With my connection to her.
I've never heard people say that they do feel a difference, but it's always, so important to keep reiterating that fact.
Absolutely.
And I love Lorelei's name. Is there a special meaning at all to her name?
There is. So Lorelei is after my mom, Laura. She has been my rock, not only through just our whole fertility journey, but, surrogacy as well. She's been so encouraging and helpful to us as we've navigated this. And then her middle name is Rose, which is my grandma's name and my sister's middle name. So those 3 women in my life have truly gotten me to this point and gotten us, whether it was having a conversation with me, letting me vent about something I was stressing about, watching our kids. I mean, they have helped Josh and I through this whole process. And so it means so much to me to name Lorelei, after them, to honor that, it does take a village to get to not just to raise children, but for a lot of people, it takes a village to have children as well.
It does. Yes. And, you actually mentioned that you've had to throw a lot of your expectations about bringing your children into the world, the expectations that you had when you first got married and you thought it would be so easy to have a family. And you've shared a lot of that. You've shared that you have felt like you have failed at times. You have felt some of the, the sting of shame. So what would you tell your younger self now, and what would you like to tell our listeners about that?
Yeah, I wish I could tell my younger self that, families are made in all different beautiful ways. And getting to your family is just part of the journey. It's not everything. I think for so long, at the beginning of this journey, myself in my 20s, I was so focused on the process of getting there that I couldn't see that having the family was the big idea, the dream. It wasn't my dream to be pregnant. It wasn't my dream to carry so many pregnancies. My dream was to have a family, a close family, a big family. And I wish I could tell my younger self to just kind of let those expectations go, because it'll open you up to so many other beautiful possibilities. And, I look back, I don't regret my journey at all. It has shaped who I am. It has shaped our family. It has shaped my marriage. And, I just wish I could have alleviated some of that stress and pressure and shame along the way, just knowing that sometimes you have to let go, and everyone's body is different and we're all capable of different things. And I just wish I could have seen, the light at the end of the tunnel, knowing that you don't have to put this all on yourself. You don't have to do this alone. There are people that can help make your dreams come true.
There are. And gosh, what a magnificent Mother's Day to celebrate for you and, of course, for your surrogate. So being that this is so special for both of you, do you have a message that you'd like to share with Maranda on, the impact that she has had on your life?
Absolutely. Maranda, you have absolutely changed our life in more ways than one. Our family, it's really a decade of so many things that feels like it's come to a close in the best way possible. We are so grateful to Maranda because now we are able to enjoy our family. We feel complete. We feel like we can move forward and without fear, without all of the shame and the grief and everything we talked about, because we just feel so whole as a family now that we have Lorelei and her delivery, and she's here safely, and everything was so successful, and we couldn't have done that without Maranda and her family. It's been a joy to get to know Miranda's family as well throughout the process, and it is just so amazing to just women supporting women. I mean, my bond with her feels so close because I feel like I would do anything for her family, even with, we've known each other for say a year, and I just feel so connected to her and so eternally grateful for the joy that she has given our family. And I said this to her probably a million times in at least the last month of the pregnancy and when Lorelei was born, but thank you will never be enough. I mean, I just don't have words. I don't have words for her, but it's eternally grateful for sure. And she's changed our life.
She has. And I know in her heart she knows that. I know that you've mentioned it to her many times, but I still hope that she hears this final message on this Mother's Day podcast for sure. And one final question, Jacqueline, before we go. And what would you tell other women who are thinking about becoming a surrogate?
Yeah, I would tell those women that if you even haven't that inkling in your heart to help somebody, deserving parents, grow their family, have children, I would say to go for it, because the impact it's far beyond just that, that mom that you're helping, that couple that you're helping, those intended parents. It's a ripple effect. I mean, our entire family has been awaiting the arrival of Lorelei and cheering us on as we grow our family. And the joy that is brought by somebody doing that for somebody else goes far beyond that immediate family. I mean, grandparents, friends, aunts, uncles. My sons now have a sister. I mean, it's truly amazing. If you have the ability to do that for someone, I absolutely recommend it, because I mean, I know there are so many different stories out there. Mine is unique to the next person's. Everyone's is different, but there's always a road that leads to surrogacy and finding that special person. Like I said, it's life-changing. So if you even have it in your heart to do it, or the idea, I would say look into it and do it, because it's amazing that there are people out there that can help women and families like me.
Jacqueline, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It is one of courage. It is one of triumph. It is one of joy, and just the beauty that comes out of surrogacy. So I really appreciate you taking the time today to share just a little bit of your story. My goodness, there's so much out there, and to share it with our listeners on this Mother's Day. And what I say to you is, have the happiest of Mother's Days.
Thank you so much. It was such an honor to be on this podcast. ConceiveAbilities will always have a special place in my heart for making this possible for our family. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Well, it wouldn't be a podcast without my aha moment. But this one is uniquely special because I really want to say to listeners out there who are tuning in, if you've ever felt alone in your fertility journey, or on the flip side, if you've wondered what a difference in someone's life you could make by becoming a surrogate, please do yourself a favor and listen to Jacqueline's podcast. It is incredible. It's insightful. It's inspirational. At times, naturally, it's heartbreaking. But at the end of the day, you will find some inspiration to put one foot in front of the other and keep going on that path to building your family. So Jacqueline's podcast, Motherhood Intended, is truly a joy to listen to. So listeners, thank you for joining me. And to all of those of you out there who are celebrating Mother's Day, happy Mother's Day.
At ConceiveAbilities, we believe that everyone who wants to become a parent can. Our agency has helped build thousands of families for nearly 25 years. Whether you are an intended parent ready to fulfill your family destiny, a surrogate answering your calling, or an egg donor wanting to expand what's possible in your life, we are your people. See how matching matters. Learn more by joining our Surrogacy Learning Center community at surrogacylearningcenter.conceivabilities.com.